Sorry.
You're going to hear a little bit about some standards efforts that Conexus has underway related to the age verification project. So I do want to make sure that everyone's aware that if you know of any intellectual property that you have or someone in your space, be that a patent or a copyright for software, or even a patent application that you think may run afoul or conflict with some of the things that we're doing in this project, we do need for you to disclose the existence of that IP so that we know what's going on. We know what kind of IP might be out there that we need to work around or find a way to ensure that we can use it as we finish up doing the work on this project. So if you could abide by any disclosure, that would be very helpful so we know what's going on. Questions about antitrust or intellectual property that I can answer before we get started? Okay, well, if anyone has any while we get going, just feel free to do a chat or interrupt and ask Gray, and we'll go back to it. Okay, Gray.
Great, thank you, Alan. So yeah, I'd love to remind folks there is a chat feature. You see a little call out box up there. If you have some questions that you want to throw in there, you can use chat. But also if you want to unmute your microphone and just go ahead and ask us to stop. I don't want to go too far down the road if a question is unanswered and it makes the rest of it kind of difficult to understand. Give you some background on the folks who are on this call and leading it. My name is Gray Taylor. I'm Executive Director of Conexus, and I'm also a technology and policy consultant to NACS, so I have 2 jobs. With me is David Ezell, as Director of New Innovations at Conexus. He also has 2 jobs. David is running our API sprint, which is really a very revolutionary re-engineering of the standards process and the standards output that we have at Conexus, moving from XML documents to RESTful APIs over JSON. Far more reliable and so forth. And this project dovetails in a lot of respects with the core work he's doing over in Conexus on APIs. Also with Manu Sporny, and Manu is a serial entrepreneur. He is the founder and CEO of Digital Bazaar. Digital Bazaar is our chosen partner to really drive this project. And we did this because we have a 10-year history with Manu and his organization. We have been in philosophical lockstep on digital credentialing, and on the abiding by W3C standards, World Wide Web Consortium standards. And he comes to this operation with a lot of experience in the digital identity initiatives that are now happening within the Department of Homeland Security, which he'll get to in his section of this. Manu does have to leave us at the hour mark, so I'm going to move really quickly because I want Manu to be able to go through the demo of some pretty exciting stuff that shows where this program is heading. So let's talk a little bit about why we're here. Age restriction, there's about 340,000 storefronts that sell age-restricted products. And as you can see, the convenience industry with 153,000 of those is a big segment of the storefront population that sells age-restricted products. Now, by the way, this is just typical age-restricted products. If you think about age-restricted products in a broader sense, when you buy ammunition, you have to prove your age. When you go to Home Depot and you buy spray paint, you have to prove your age, or you buy acetone. So there are all kinds of use cases on age verification that happen within the brick and mortar and the online retail and services space. More than half of our dollar sales inside are generated from an age-restricted product. So this is a big category. Yes, a lot of emphasis is put on QSR and food service. It's a high profit margin item, but our core draw are age-restricted products. 27% of all unit sales are generated from age-restricted products. And we have a huge portion of our transactions that involve some level of age restriction in the products. So it's a very important category for us. If I take a look at the typical familiar age restricted product total available market, 2018 is about $475 billion, of which we comprise 31.2% of those sales. So we are a very significant channel, and especially when you take a look at US tobacco and cigarettes and OTP, we're the #1 channel on those things, and we're a very big channel on beer. So in late fall, or actually almost all through last year, we had some significant problems coming up, especially around vape products that we were selling. Many of you may have remembered this. But we had whole category segments of vape products pulled from retail and eventually even pulled from online because the FDA saw them as targeting kids. Now, a product targeting kids or being appealing to kids is a problem at any level, but the implication was that kids could get them. So that basically put the pressure on us about age verification, whether brick and mortar retail was capable of reliably selling legal products on an age basis. NACS went out, well, I should back up a little bit. The board of directors at NACS saw this as a strategic threat to the industry because we're so dependent on age verification and age verified products. And we have a whole new slew of new products coming out, CBD, cannabis, that are age verified products as well. And we see from the standpoint of a strategic imperative that we need to be the best at validating customers' ages going down the road to retain product categories we have, but also expand those product categories. So NACS went out and did a consumer survey that commissioned Pensione, Washington, D.C. Polling organization, and said, look, we want to get the pulse of the nation. I want to get rid of, I don't want to poll people who are in the tobacco business, the alcohol business, or even the convenience business. So they went out and they polled 2,000 individuals across the country who have no relationship to this issue. And the findings were actually pretty stark. Most times in a national poll, a good indicator of support is around 40%. And you'll see some of the numbers up here that go as high as 90%, which is, Pensione said they've never done a survey that had this much concurrence. So 3 in 5 customers we polled said something that age-restricted items being sold to underage customers is something that's always existed. And that's probably because a lot of us have bought stuff that when we weren't of age in the old days. So it's something that's been out there before, but 25% of the customers said, look, this is an emerging problem. And a lot of that was tied around underage use of vape. 75% of the people, the good news, are saying that we do a pretty effective job of age verification. So we're not seen as the people who are the problem here, but there is a problem. And most surprisingly was half of the people said that secondhand sourcing is really how youth get access. And that's what all the studies have really pointed to. Yes, we are validating and verifying people using the WeCard program and so forth. We brought availability down to less than 10% of the industry, but kids are still getting their hands on tobacco, beer, vape products, and so forth. And the public knows it's usually a proxy going in and buying these products and then providing them to underage kids. Don't want to go through too much of this, but basically on the right-hand side, the takeaway here is 90% of the Americans we polled said they support a nationwide standardized validation program. 52% of the people polled said they strongly support that. So in other words, they think we're doing a good job. They know that underage sales isn't the real key thing, but they want to have a standardized system across the nation that makes it just de rigueur. It's part of life. If you go buy a pack of cigarettes, you're going to get proofed. And that's 90% is, as I said, very high correlation. So NACS brought this information back, and through various meetings, the conclusion we came through was that the consumer is really defining what those expectations are. At the end of the day, we serve the public, and the public tells the regulators what they can and cannot tolerate. And so the consumer is expecting us to keep all retail products out of youth hands and through a uniform age verification program, and that this is a brand issue. If we fail to deliver this type of expectation, then our industry, as an industry, suffers from brand. Consumer understands the role of social sourcing, and social sourcing is a problem, and we need to do whatever we can to benignly, but not actively, stop social sourcing. We're not police, but we do have some things that we can do to control that. We sell legal products responsibly, but we need to improve our compliance to meet those customers' expectations. So And these are all the reasons why we need to do it. It's really about economic viability and the viability of the future. So let's get to the proposed initiative, the solution. I've got to move this around so I can even see what my slides are saying. We need to publicly align the industry stakeholders to the mission, starting with tobacco and OTP. Tobacco and OTP have become the poster child, rightly or wrongly, for underage usage. And if you've listened to any of Hank Armour's public announcements over the last 2 months, he's begun doing that. He's begun calling for more stringent age verification of products. We need to create a standards-based and cost-effective system for age verification. So there are systems out there that you can bring in to do age verification today. None of them are standards-based. All of them are bespoke. And what we're really looking to do is by co-opting all of the retailers, and not just convenience, but any retailer, and all of the age-restricted FMCGs, we think we can lower the cost of this to an acceptable level where it's not an option. People will adopt, stores will adopt this. We also need to embrace consumer rights and privacy. And this is an important issue. When I am validating somebody's age, that is one level of me prying into their personally identifiable information. When I'm tracking and tracing and going after social sourcing, that's another layer of this. And we're going to talk to you about a solution that not only complies with GDPR in California today, but we believe is going to be at the forefront of defining how you use personally identifiable information in commercial environments responsibly. We want to publish these standards and interfaces in the public domain. So this is a departure from the traditional Connexus line, and that's why NACS is leading this and Connexus is supporting. Every standard that we create around age verification is going to be free in the public domain to incorporate. APIs, microservices that we are creating, data flows, tokens that we're going to be consuming, they're all going to be well-defined, standards-based, and available for anybody to adopt. Operate this system via transparent public benefit entity. So we'll talk a little bit about governance, but the governance around this is a standalone organization where nobody has superlative interest in the data that's being collected or generated, and without a collective agreement, no policies of this group will change. Minimize cost and tech debt through network economics and category expansion. So the idea here is this isn't just tobacco and OTP. This is any FMCG selling an age verified product. I want to have 1,200 vendors supporting this. I would like to have 500,000 retailers also supporting this. And in that way, we can reduce our overall costs that we each have to bear. Provide a common infrastructure to accommodate known regulatory needs and accommodate broad resale requirements of the FMCGs. So there are FMCGs out there who want to voluntarily limit the amount of product that can be bought in a day systemically by a customer. That is a unique thing. That takes us deeper into the PII and deeper into the tracking and tracing that we need to do. Lead innovation in digital identity migration, and you'll see that. This group needs to be on the future of that and advocate for stricter age verification. So once we get a cost-effective solution in the public domain out there for any retailer to put in, then we need to start shutting the door and asking for regulators to enforce age verification. That's important because it's really tough from an economic standpoint to be enforcing age verification while the store across the street is not doing that. And we want to make this a standard thing for the industry. So some observations just in keeping age verified products from underage kids. It's a societal approach. We're not the only entry and exit point, but we need to start doing things with completeness. 100% verification, no leakage. We need to verify everybody, and it needs to be a social imperative. Verifying every customer of age restricted products is essential, and it can be very easy. We can simply do the age verification. But when we get into track and trace and proving that the person who bought that product was of age, and here's the anecdote. If a 16-year-old is caught in an accident with a 6-pack of beer in his car with a store's receipt on it, the preponderance of evidence says the store sold him that beer. What we're really proposing here is that there is a tokenized value of that transaction that under subpoena, we could go in and prove who actually did buy that beer. And I'm pretty sure that we would prove that it wasn't the kid in the car at the accident. So being able to prove chain of possession age verification is very important. And then we need to have the consumers vested in the objective. And this is very much a public relations thing. And if you look at some of the chains, we're already doing 100% verification. They've trained their cashiers to talk to people like me who are obviously not under the age of 30 and tell me why they're asking me to do this. And what we think is the public will be very supportive of this. Solutions exist today. So, why would we reinvent? Somebody yesterday pointed out the FDA's got a free downloadable driver's license reader that you can bring in. And there's a couple of really key things that come to the fore. But first of all, let's take a look at what big tech can provide. Big tech has the capability today. And when we talk big tech, we're talking about Google or Facebook, Amazon. They're technically able to provide this service to retailers right now because they have more information about each one of us as we transit their online platforms. They would have to require the same data flows from retailers that this program is going to require. The only difference is that that data would then flow back into a big tech platform. Also, the identities that they establish, synthetic and real, would flow back into the big tech platform. And then for us to go and actually go and market to people and get to understand people and use their identity, we're going to have to pay a toll for that. So we don't necessarily want this to become a big tech offer. The identity service providers are toll-based entities like an IntelliCheck, like LexisNexis. And these are folks who do a very valuable service in this business, which is they take people with paper identities and they digitally verify them for that transactional purpose. They tend to be very expensive. They tend to be very cumbersome. They tend to do a lot of checks that they really don't need given the situation, but they do a very complete job. Then there are toll-based document to digital ID conversion services where you do that conversion once and then you have a digital ID that's residing in a proprietary wallet. That is also then becomes a trusted service provider proof of age. All of these are winner-take-all closed-loop digital identity systems. There's nothing wrong with them from that perspective, except for one thing. There's no commonality and there's no way for us to resolve people across those uncommon platforms for the purpose of track and trace. Then there's government agencies. They're fragmented. You've got state, you've got federal, you have military, you have various agencies. The state and the federal government don't necessarily jibe. They're all issuing their own ID and they all have a constitutional right to claim sovereignty over their identity that they're issuing. There's a lack of coordination and use case consideration between those folks, but it's getting better. Real ID is an example of how the feds are working with the states to improve driver's licenses for travel on air travel. But all of them are moving now into a digital identity space, and the feds are going in one direction, and the states on the driver's licenses are going in another direction, and there's very little coordination. There isn't any constitutional reason for coordination at this point. But all of them need a private buy-in to make these emerging digital IDs work. And so we want to be, as an industry, the first private industry that says, you guys give us those IDs, we'll consume them, we will use them and support them. At the end of the day, the long-term strategy here is how do we eliminate static numbers on pieces of paper that are hard to change when somebody gets them stolen. Going to a tokenized identity, as Manu will talk about, is really the way for us to do that. And it'll solve a lot of problems, including data security and privacy issues. So none of these guys offer a neutral, unified public benefit model. They're all balkanized. They have varying levels of verification from incredibly weak to incredibly overburdensome. There's no way to systemically track social purchases because they're discrete systems, and there's no ability to provide, therefore, systemic limits on purchases, which we think is going to be very critical for some categories that exist today, and certainly for some categories that may come available down the road. So why is NACS taking a role in this? What does NACS bring to the table that other folks can't do? Well, NACS has three core values: knowledge, connections, and advocacy. So from a knowledge perspective, NACS has been working with WeCard since WeCard was started. And WeCard is one of the big reasons why we've been able to drive underage sales out of our industry to the point we have. Conexus, as a standards organization with almost 200 member companies in that, including retailers, we've got an incredibly strong technology and data security expertise for standards. And we're all fiscally responsible. So we know how to run nonprofit businesses and make sure that we're not always short of cash. From a connection standpoint, obviously, NACS is the trade association for the convenience store space and has a high degree of engagement from the best performers in this industry. And so does Conexus when it comes to technology and standards. We've got engagement at all levels of the organization, and from the most technical to the most strategic levels. And we have a unique ability in this forum to avoid the antitrust concerns of trying to provide an industry solution. So what appeals to an FMCG about this operation is they don't have a place to go and say, hey, Altria and RJR, we want to work together to come up with this solution. They pretty much are prohibited from doing that because of antitrust concerns. So we become the Switzerland that we can discuss this stuff, and we bring more perspective to the table. And then from an advocacy standpoint, we're a well-respected advocate in all levels of federal governance, and we have an established state association network in place, so that once we create a better mousetrap when it comes to age verification, we absolutely plan on socializing this to all the authorities at these levels. We also are very active in the World Wide Web Consortium and X9, ISO, and so forth. And we're going to keep using our use case to push the further development of digital credentialing in those environments, because we want the brick and mortar world to move to digital credentials. So here are the tech design principles about what you're going to see. First, it must be more frictionless or less friction filled and reliable than existing age verification. And our benchmark on existing age verification is a non-electronic version where a cashier looks at a driver's license, calculates the age, and then triangulates the person in front of them with the picture on the ID. It's got to work within common retailer technology stack. In other words, we're assuming that the retailer has got an open system that's either running Windows Embedded, Linux, and has a scanner that's capable of 2D barcode and a QR code, and has the ability to support microservices and an internet connection that will allow the POS to connect to a host. It's got to operate in the reality of retail operations. So one of the design principles we have in here is what you're going to see will always operate even if a store is offline. And in the digital token world, will operate if both the store and the person holding the mobile device are offline. So in other words, it is meant to work in an offline world temporarily and do store and forward upon reconnect. We can't increase the data security footprint or privacy footprint or risk for consumers, and that's for today under GDPR guidance, or tomorrow for what we see on the horizon and what we reasonably believe is going to be acceptable policy. And so we've been designing it around that. The POS, the distribution specification, the POS specification that we're going to talk a little bit about, those changes cannot be frequent. This is what we are doing is we're putting together a specification for the POS partners in the industry and saying, look, we expect these to survive out there for the next 2 to 3 years before we come back and tell you we want to do some changes. And those changes really are going to be about innovation and improvements rather than bug fixes. So we're really focused on the POS specification. All the operations and data flows, of course, have to be consistent. And it's got to be easy for our tech vendors to incorporate these tools. And so we've already stood up a constant development, constant deployment and engine, so that if today we had a point of sale vendor with the existing specification, they actually could be banging tests against our test host and moving forward. We have to embrace the emerging digital identity standards, and I'm going to let Manu go through that, but that is going to be a huge sea change over the next 5 to 10 years, and we plan on being in the forefront of that. So on a project release plan basis, we're looking for a January 21 launch of this product, this initiative, and the entire ecosystem. There are multiple phases. There is a marketing phase, and then within marketing phases, there are technical phases. So in marketing phase 1, which is encompasses the POS specification that we are trying to finalize and finish in the next couple of weeks, is technical phase 1, which says table stakes are we need to support paper driver's licenses. So standardized POS operations and data flows for all the phases. Focus on standardizing the driver's license consumption of the POS, utilizing PDF 417 data on the driver's license. Scalable and secure hosting system that does all the things that we intended to do at this time. So in other words, the host will be ready for all the subsequent tech phases going forward. In other words, if we never did anything in the digital, we would have a really good system that would track, trace, limit, verify paper-based driver's licenses that we could deploy across the channel. Technical phase 2 is where Manu will get into, but it's basically a mobile device operation that takes all of the PII out of the regular use of the system and allows us to move further away from privacy issues. And then marketing phase 2 is really extend the use cases to online, because the token system that Manu is going to show you works online in my browser on my desktop. It works as it's transportable. It can work with loyalty programs right off the mobile device. So the whole idea is to get as many people using this system to just run their business and prove that verification has happened all the way through. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David Ezell, who is going to walk through the POS integration design. David, I assume I'm driving.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Gray. So thanks to everybody for joining us. This is a very important topic, and it falls to me to talk about the POS systems. I'm sure that if you're a POS vendor, or if you've worked with POS vendors a lot, you know that there is a truth, that is, there is no such thing as a simple feature. Trying to design features into POS systems and roll them out is amazingly fraught with all kinds of things that can go wrong. So we are, as Gray said, we're attempting, one of our key goals in this program is to minimize the impact on the POS folks. But first, we want to talk about the operational details. So what are our goals for operation? We want consumers to be as inconvenienced as little as possible. And there is, no matter what you do, there's always something, but we have made every attempt to minimize that. And we are very cognizant of the fact, back in my POS days, we had a customer who let us know that if we added 1 second to a transaction, that we were costing his company, it was a big box retailer with a lot of stores, but if we added 1 second, we were costing him $13 million. So we're very cognizant of the fact that even 1 second additional dwell time at a cash register is an unwelcome addition. So we want to make sure that what we do with customers and consumers is as frictionless as we can make it. But we also know we live in a land where we're going to have paper documents for a while. The last bullet on here is our digital future. And I want to emphasize this point, though, that there is a fulcrum in this program that you should keep in mind, and that is the appearance of a single-use token. In the early parts of this program, the single-use token will be based upon these paper documents: driver's license, passports, military and tribal IDs. This is so that we can continue to sell the product mine public as seamlessly as possible. In later parts of the program, we will support the single-use token directly from your phone, and Manu is going to show us a pretty compelling demo on how that works. but what you'll see, I will try to point this out in the flows at the POS. There is this point of commonality, and when you get there, it works just the same either early in the program or later. And then finally, offline operation. I already talked about the digital future, but offline operation is key in our industry. There are a lot of products out there that allow you to, if you're online, you can do these checks. There are all kinds of things you can do when you're online. It's a really big challenge to make a system that you can check authentication of things when you're offline. And that's all part of this security technology that Manu is going to talk to us about. Next slide. So in addition to the retail operation goals, we also feel it necessary to support our POS suppliers. So we want to make sure that we are using the best technology possible, and we'll go into that in just a couple of minutes. We also want the communications stacks that have been that our retailers have invested in and our POS suppliers have developed too. We want to make sure that those remain valid and useful. And we want to future-proof the whole solution as much as we can. I think after this year, what we think of as future-proof is probably different than what it was before, because the future may not be what you think it is. I think if there is a take-home lesson, it's that there is always a future that you just couldn't imagine right around the corner. And another thing we're doing to save burden on POS is engage in an API ecosystem design. And that design has a lot of benefits. It uses microservices, and microservices are defined as small groups of functionality that can be maintained and rolled out and changed and upgraded independently. And because of the way these things work in cloud technology today, the more of the feature set, of the more functionality that we put in that cloud feature set, the less impact we have on the POS systems actually in the stores. So this is a design point that we are pursuing. It minimizes churn, and that churn is visible in cost and time to market. It helps us stay with common programming practice. I think most POS vendors today are engaging in some sort of cloud API sort-based services. And the ones that we're providing through the Conexus API ecosystem are state-of-the-art RESTful web services. And when I say state-of-the-art, I mean the most commonly adopted and used standards that there are for implementing these things. It gives us a way to prevent having to upgrade functionality through POS software. We can actually do a lot of that in the cloud. And the Conexus API ecosystem, because these APIs are part of that, there's going to be a powerful test and certification environment that sort of comes along with it. So POS vendors, existing POS vendors, will be able to use that. If you have a new device or a new service like Order Ahead and you want to be able to use these credentials through that system, there will be ways that you can certify those systems using the Conexus testbed and get them out to market quickly. So it's not like just reading a document like it was in the old days. We actually have running code where you can test these things. I wanted to mention before we change the slide just a little bit about the paper documents that were on the first slide. And this actually applies to all the paper documents. There will always be some sort of leakage of capability. There will always be people who can cheat the system as long as we have paper documents in the way. But there are a few things about the way we're implementing this that are going to improve that picture pretty drastically. Number one is if you have a fake ID today, if you take it to a store and get declined, you go down the street and you take it into that store and they take it. With this system, the cashier will have the ability to say, this looks like a fake ID to me, which will raise a flag to the next cashier. Now, the cashier may still take the ID, but it gives a point of reference, and it gives a sort of a common way to throw some water on some of these fake IDs that propagate. And another thing we can do is check velocity. Now, obviously, store systems can check ID velocities, but we can do that too. And if you have a driver's license that shows up all the time, you probably are using an ID fraudulently. By the same token, if we see the same driver's license showing up in 5 places at once, we may flag that ID as suspicious. So there are ways that we are actually improving the paper story a little bit, even though our goal is the advanced technology that's possible. Next slide. So these flows are they're very much in common with the driver's license. We scan, we do a clerk verification, we make sure the scan data is verified, and we calculate an age from it. And then we turn around and we get this single-use token. The reason for the single-use token is it's essentially a random number that we apply to the data in the sale. That gives us the ability for very quantity sensitive products. It gives us the capability of checking those without compromising user identity. This is a very big deal. And there are steps in here. That's the open to buy check. There are steps in here for what happens if you're offline. It is hard to stop that sale, but it is still possible to update totals after the fact when the network comes back. For non-driver's licenses, it's really pretty much identical, except that there's a little bit more manual entry involved, and we hope that this is going to be a minimal requirement in that column. Where the magic really happens is when we get to the tokenized flow in the third column, because we scan, and at that point, everything is pretty much automatic. So that token that we had to go to the cloud to get a minute ago is now present right on the face of the user's phone, and it becomes a random number that can be traced through the system, and it can only be used once. Next slide. And this just shows how the data stacks up. So the driver's license, we call it the PDF 417 data because that's the format on the driver's license. There are only four fields on there that we use, and it's none of them are the person's name. There's a license number, an authority. There is the type of document. There is the date of birth, and there is an expiration date. Those fields, I said 5. Those fields are used to produce that random number. We either do that or we use manual data to produce that same random number. And then added to that, we put where this came from. That's just so that we can check velocities and we can find out where problems may be happening in the system. It has nothing to do really with tracking customers. And finally, once things are bought, we by G10 and package quantity and sale quantity, we can let the POS know that any sort of wide limit may have been exceeded. I've just heard recently that they have products coming out that blend alcohol with THC, which sounds like a really bad idea. If you've ever been to Amsterdam, you know these are the people who fall in the canals. But anyway, they're marketing it, and guaranteed they're going to want to know how much of this people are buying. So we want to keep the channel open, and we want to keep our reputation and the reputation of our merchants pristine and all of this. So we want to make sure we have the best technology possible. Next slide. And this is pretty much what Manu is going to show you. It's sort of a preview. So you would bring up your single-use token. You have to use, in this case, like my Apple iPhone, you use your thumbprint to get that up. It shows a 2D barcode, which you scan, which is step 3. The POS checks to make sure that that is a NAC signed barcode and that the information on there is correct, and it's got an embedded age in it. So the only thing that is known is that the person is over 21. The rest is a random number. You go to the cloud, we check the open to buy, and then finally we commit the sale and say that this random number bought these products. And with that, I think it's Manu's turn.
Great. Thank you, David. Let me go ahead and switch over and share my screen here. Can everyone see the wallet here on the screen, or this mobile application?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right. So, hi, my name's Manu Sporny. I'm leading up the technology effort behind this initiative. And as Gray and David said, we thought it would be good to kind of show you what we have working so far. Now, I want to be very clear. This is a working system, and is what we've put together already. The other thing I wanted to mention before we start is both Gray and David mentioned that we've been working with the Department of Homeland Security. For those of you that aren't aware, the Department of Homeland Security, along with Customs and Border Protection, TSA, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, has started a push into digital identity. And it's not they're thinking about it. They're actually pushing very aggressively, and have been for a number of years, into digital identity. How do we replace the driver's license with a digital ID card? How do we replace passports with digital passports? Things of that nature. So this is, all of this technology that we're talking about. Both Gray and David mentioned open standards. These are global open standards that are being created, that we are utilizing in this project, and that we are rolling out in lockstep with the U.S. federal government. So this isn't just, this isn't just a convenience store initiative around digital identity. This is a national and global initiative, and we're utilizing those open standards to ensure that there's no vendor lock-in that happens when we roll the system out. As David just mentioned, there are two big technical phases that happen here. The first technical phase is that we're using what you already have deployed in the stores, right? So the assumptions are you're not doing any kind of expensive upgrades to your point of sale systems. You're using the barcode scanners that you have there today. You're not changing things drastically from the way they work today, which is, customer walks in, they have an age-restricted product. You ask them for their physical ID. You scan the back of that card, and everything happens with more advanced, track and trace, better privacy than what we have today. So that's technical phase 1. What we're getting ready to show you right now is technical phase 2. So this happens once we have a good operational understanding about how phase 1 went, and we want to start transitioning people into using their mobile phones for checkout. And we're doing that for a variety of reasons. One of them is it'll be faster. You can send other things like digital coupons, age tokens, and a variety of other things that are going to really increase speed at the checkout over just having to pull out a physical license and potentially manually key in information in the worst case. You'll be able to do digital coupons, be able to do age tokens, and a variety of other interesting digital first things. The other big advantage there, as David mentioned, is these technologies are much more difficult to create any kind of fraudulent ID than what we have existing today. There are some really good counterfeits that are coming in, which is why Department of Homeland Security is spending so much time and effort and money into Real ID and making driver's licenses and paper documentation go digital. Okay, so the demo you're about to see right now is phase 2. It happens once the customer has gotten a digital wallet. And what we're going to show you is what you can do with some of these really strong forms of identity that are coming from the US federal government. Again, active programs right now, expectation is that they're going to go into production with this stuff in the next 6 months to a year. So it's not many years off. So what you're going to see is you're going to have this individual. His name's Louis Pasteur. He has been going into a convenience store over the past 6 months or so using his physical ID, but he found out that he can get a digital one, right? So he went and got a digital wallet, again, provided for free by NACS, so they don't have to spend any money on it. Free digital wallet. And what they're going to do is they're going to use a government-issued ID to prove that they're of age to the WeCard program, and then get a WeCard set of tokens that they can use at the convenience store that can be scanned at a point of sale. And they're going to also get a token that they can use online to get digital coupons. Okay, so let's take a look at how that looks. The first step in this process, of course, is that we need to onboard some kind of digital identity. And we're going to show you what we've been working on with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. I'm going to go ahead and authenticate on this site. So just to be clear, for those of you that don't know the process of becoming a permanent resident or a citizen in the United States, it is an incredibly deep vetting process that happens on the individual. You end up seeing multiple federal agents and federal employees. You are fingerprinted, you are background checked. There's many years that pass where you have employment in the United States. And then at the end of the process, when you become a permanent resident or a citizen, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services sends you a packet in the mail. And in that packet is your green card. That's what's called a permanent resident card. People also call it a green card. And in that packet, you get a letter saying this is your green card and what you can use it for. And you also get kind of a code that you can use to get the digital version of your green card. So that's the assumption here, is that you've gotten this packet in the mail, you're now a permanent resident. When that packet is handed over to you, the postal worker actually asks you for your physical ID. They scan the document and they do an actual AMVA background check to make sure that the license is valid, to make sure you're who you say you are, and then they hand the packet over to you. So again, massively deep vetting to establish that this is you. Then what you do, and this is that Louis Pasteur person that we were talking about, he's got his mobile wallet. He also has a laptop. So the interesting thing about these digital wallets is what's in your mobile phone is synchronized with your laptop, your tablet, basically any computing device you want to synchronize it to. So if you get a credential in one place, it shows up in the other place. It's very convenient. So they heard about this program that they can go and get their digital citizenship card, their digital permanent resident card. They go to the website, it's USCIS's website. They click authenticate. The NACS wallet pops up and says, hey, USCIS wants for you to log into the site. I go ahead and click authenticate. It asks me for the code that I got in the mail. So I go ahead and type this code in. So that's the code I got in the mail. And I submit the verification code. USCIS knows that that code is associated with the individual, Louis Pasteur. They've done a very strong authentication. Even though you didn't see a username and password, there was a bunch of high-tech, cryptography that happened, digital signatures that happened to authenticate me. And they basically say at this point, okay, you've got the right code, your digital signature matches up. Here's your permanent resident card as a digital credential. So I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to put it in my wallet. And this is what one of these credentials look like, right? So it's a permanent resident card. It's got the seal of the United States, of America DHS on there. It's got a picture of me, and it's got a number of personally identifiable pieces of information on it, right? But this is my card, and just like you would take that physical card and put it in your physical wallet, I'm going to take this digital card, or Lewis is going to take this permanent resident card and store it in Lewis's digital wallet. So if I now go back over to the wallet on the mobile phone and I refresh it, what should show up there now? It was empty before, but now I've got a permanent resident card in my mobile wallet. It automatically synchronized between the laptop and the mobile phone, and I can take a look at it. And that's the government issued ID. Now I've got that in my wallet. The next step is where the C-store industry comes in, right? Where we go to the WeCard site. So Lewis found out, he's been using his physical card in the store, but the store clerk said, hey, you could go digital, just go to the WeCard site and onboard. And when you go to the WeCard site is going to ask you for an official ID of some kind. It could be a permanent resident card, it could be a driver's license, it could be a passport, it could be any a trusted source of information for your age that the WeCard program supports. Once again, I click the verify button to verify my age. And what WeCard then does is it says, give me any valid government issued credential. My wallet, the Nax wallet, says, hey, you've got a permanent resident card that you could use for this purpose. And I'm going to go ahead and share that with the WeCard site. Now, when the WeCard site gets it, that is a digital credential. It is protected by all kinds of cryptography. There's a digital signature on there. And WeCard knows that the US federal government issued that credential to me. It's incredibly forgery resistant versus a typical physical driver's license, which is not. Again, WeCard processes it and says, hey, okay, it checks your age checks out. Here you go. Here's your WeCard credentials. Now, when I click Store Credentials, what you're going to notice here is I get two WeCard credentials. One of them is the photo ID card, right? This is the thing that I'm going to use in a store. It says that I'm over the age of 21. It has a QR code barcode that basically can be scanned at a point of sale terminal. And these are the one-time use tokens that David and Gray were talking about. These tokens rotate on a fairly regular basis to make it incredibly resistant to copying or printing it out or screenshotting it, photoshopping it, that kind of stuff. So this is the card that I use when I go in the store. And online, I want to be a bit more careful about my privacy online. I don't want to show sites what I look like, right? I don't want to show them a picture. I just need to show the site that I'm over the age of 21 so that they can give me access to an age-restricted site, like a digital coupon site for alcohol, tobacco, energy drinks, things of that nature, right? So I get two credentials from WeCard, and I go ahead and store them in my digital wallet. And if I go back to my digital wallet, I only had my permanent resident card in there a second ago, but when I refresh, I see these two cards come up: my age verification photo card from WeCard and the age verification card. Now, when I walk into a convenience store now and I want to buy something, I no longer have to reach for my physical driver's license. I can pull up this wallet, I can click on this, and this is the token that's scanned at the point of sale whenever they need to do an age verification. And the token basically says I'm of age, I'm over the age of 21. right? And that's it at the point of sale. This token works offline. It works online. It works if the store's online and I'm offline. It works if I'm online, the store's offline. Any variation thereof, right? And as David said, this is a very difficult thing to get working in an online capacity, but we've got it. Okay, so that's if I want to go in the store. Now let's use one of these credentials to go and pick up a digital coupon. So if I look at this one, this is the one that I'm going to use online, the one without a picture of me. So I'm going to go to a place that's the coupon site, right? But this is an age-restricted coupon site because they have age-related products that they give out coupons for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the verify button on this site, totally different site, right? Once again, my Nax wallet pops up and it says, hey, this site has asked you to prove your age, but that's it, not what you look like, not anything else. And so the only thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over a credential, a WeCard credential that says I'm over the age of 21. The site gets that credential, they verify the digital signature, they see it came from WeCard, they see it hasn't been tampered with, and they go, okay, well, here you go. Here's your coupon. When I click the store coupon button, I see that it's a coupon for a Juul, some Juul pods. There is a serialized global coupon number on here that's associated with my age. So you know that not only was I age verified when I got the coupon, but you know that this is my coupon and not somebody else's coupon. And then once again, there's this code that can be scanned at the register in the event that you're offline and you want to use the code. So I went ahead and stored that in my digital wallet. And if I refresh my digital wallet, I can see that I now have this Juul coupon in my digital wallet, and I can pull it up, and there's a picture, of it, the global, the coupon number, serialized coupon number, and the thing that can be scanned at the point of sale if I'm offline. If I'm online, I can send all of these over in one shot, right? So one scan at the POS, it sends this digital coupon over. If I'm buying a Juul product, it sends my age verification over because the point of sale needs it, and it's a much more easy and streamlined experience. So that's what we have working. Right now, this is all working code. There's still much to do. That's why we'd love to hear from each one of you as retailers on what you think about this, things that you'd like to see added to it, things that need to be modified. And yeah, in general, really looking forward to your feedback on that. With that, back over to you, Gray.
Okay, thank you, Manu. Anybody have any questions at this point? Because we walked you through a lot of tech design.
And while you're, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just had a quick question on, will the app that needs to get on their phone reside sort of in like their app store, or is sending the consumer to Nax necessary to get access to this app?
So we're actually intending to put this into an app store. And we actually are also intending, because it is standards based, that anybody who's compliant with the digital token standards of W3C would also be able to house this app. What you saw there is a total interoperable app that anybody could use or anybody could create. So it is an app that is downloaded. And I think it's also important to mention that in our, I hate using the term wallet, but in our container for these things, there is a design intention that this is consumable by your own apps. That I'm hoping down the road that there's an adoption of these digital credentials that you then consume them into your own mobile applications and start removing friction by transmitting age token along with loyalty number, coupons, all that stuff going through and conduiting through your own applications. So this is going to be an open interface for people to consume, for businesses to consume and adopt.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay, good. That was a great question. So on initiative operations, proposed structure going forward, the market, we're contemplating right now, the market facing operations are going to be managed by public entity. And right now we're in discussions with WeCard. WeCard has got a great track record and great brand value in age verification in our channel and other channels as well. And so we've had some very great conversations with them on that. And this would be the market facing side and the POP side that they do very, very well. The other side would be is NACS is going to stay engaged in this project. The team that just presented this project to you is going to be engaged on a long-term basis, and there will be other team members added to this because what we want to do is we want to be able to turn over a turnkey solution that's in the name of the retailers and the CPGs and here the stakeholders, that we want to maintain an investment level that keeps this thing fresh, keeps it bug-free, provides level 2 and 3 support, and keeps that responsibility off the backs of the WeCard folks who right now don't have the infrastructure either. So it's really going to be an ongoing partnership going forward. That said, WeCard is in control of that program. They're just licensing it on a turnkey solution. From a board of directors perspective, we've copied the board of directors primarily from the Conexus and NACS experience. And so what you see is a broad base opportunity for retailers, for FMCGs, for any group to participate. And just a couple of call outs on here. So the board of advisors is very open. We can see non-government organizations, advocacy groups coming in and participating at this level. We also have a board of ethics and security, which is the watchdog for the privacy elements and the security elements of the system. Our long-term goal for this is for this entity to have a long life, being known as the Switzerland and the gold standard of maintaining your age verification for whatever application you want it to be. And again, nobody has any superlative rights there, so it's going to be a highly ethical organization. NACS is ponied up 2.8 million. That is what you saw here as an example of where we're going, and the engineering design documents that we have for the entire ecosystem. We're at the first draft of the design phase, and as what Manu showed you, we've already prototyped some of the things that we need to do. And then going forward, we look at this as a partnership for the industry. So we expect that retailers are going to have to deploy software, they're going to have to train cashiers. We hope that they're not going to have to buy any new equipment, but that exercise alone is going to be around $500 per store to go out and do that. So this is an investment that we're asking retailers to make. By the way, this is about the same investment that you would have to make if you went to a bespoke age verification system. So it really is, if I do age, I'm going to have to spend this money now. Where do I do my age? And we're suggesting you get more bang for the buck. The operations at scale are intended to be funded by the FMCGs. We spend quite a bit of time working with the main tobacco and nicotine FMCGs. We have current conversations going on with them. They are very well apprised of what the program is. And we're looking for them to do the operational funding of the program. So in other words, the proposition is this: if you upgrade your system, the FMCGs are going to participate and provide free age verification services for you as a retailer. We feel that this is going to be less than $1,000 per store over a 5-year lifespan. And so if you, again, go back and say, I'm going to have to upgrade my POS to do any age verification, and it's going to cost me $500 or so, really the make or buy or the decision cost is, well, if I go with a private age verification program, will it cost me less than $100 a year? And we don't think that's currently a realm of possibility. So this is where we say, look, us doing this collectively and on a standard basis and at scale, we can really drive the cost of this down to de minimis. It's still something, but it is de minimis. So next steps, we really need your feedback. The way that we have left it with the FMCGs is we have a lot of governance issues to talk about, a lot of other issues, but we really need to focus on the POS transaction stream and make sure that our data is tight and the use cases are covered at the POS, and that you retailers are happy with the transaction flow, and that we're doing it in such a way that you can see this being operated at your storefront. So we're focusing on POS because, as we said earlier, we want to drop the POS specification on our POS members within Conexus within the next couple of weeks, so these folks can start helping us understand how we can better integrate there. So this is a very massive, if you think about this, technical process where we're trying to get the input from FMCGs, from retailers, and POS, while we're also developing then this overarching architecture at the host and get it out the door so that we can meet the January 1st go live date, where we go to scale and we invite you to widely adopt this. I've got So I have a question here. You made a great point earlier on the local authorities enforcing the standard. It could be a big hurdle to make legislation stick at, especially the lower levels of government. How realistic is this part of the process? It's a great question. One of the benefits of having NACS work with this, and it's very important for us to make sure there's no leakage within the industry. There is concurrently going on with this, and based off of the success of this program, an effort from NACS reaching out to the state associations and with WeCard to basically go to the government level, not the DMV, but the government level, and socialize this as the standard for doing age verification. And so this is not going to be just a national level thing. This will also be pushed through. By the way, we also have some headwinds at the local level. Various states have varying levels of privacy and so forth, and quite frankly, we'd love to be able to get a free database lookup in the DMV of every license at least once that we're keeping to get rid of to reduce risk of counterfeit. So the longer term goal here is to get very close with those state governments under the understanding that we're solving an underage problem that I don't think anybody can say is not worth doing, and that we're looking for them to help us out by giving us at least one free validation of a driver's license against the DMV, at least in the short term, until we can move to the MDL model. So this isn't just a uniform project at the federal level. This is going to also take on the state levels. Another question was, is there an SDK on how to properly read the correct ID scan data? Is there an SDK that helps connect out the REST services required for this? So on the POS, David is actually, through his microservices, is resolving the ID scan data within the microservices. So that actually will be offloaded, I believe, from the POS. David, you can help me out on that one. Did we lose David?
Well, extracting the PDF 417 data in the fields that we want, that is going to require a detailed description of how that data comes out. Because we have so many different platforms, we won't be providing working code. Most POS vendors don't really want that anyway. And it's actually a fairly simple parse problem, but we will be providing details on that.
Good. Yeah, the PDF 417 is very specific on data typing, but it resolves all over the license. They did try to make the visuals standard, but they've only been partially successful. So, and then David, the other question is there an SDK that helps connect out to the REST services required for this?
What the Conexus API environment provides is an OAS 3.0 file, and we will provide test scripts that you can run against your system, and also we'll have a server that your system can use. What we expect most people will do is they will take this OAS file, and there are a number of tools out there that will produce code that you link into your system that will actually make the API calls.
Thank you. If that answers your question, I hope so. So, and keep the questions coming, by the way. These are all great, deep questions. So we really need your feedback. And what do we mean by that? So we have consumers of POS, which are folks who go to a vendor and say, I'm going to buy a POS, and here's the certification we need for the payment system, that type of thing. We also have retailers who are deeply involved in their own POS or may have a custom POS. And so we're looking for those folks also to come in because they're special people to us. They are people who are responsible for the entire retail transaction set because they also own the underlying code. So we would love to have people like in that situation engaged with us because we get both sides of the equation and not just a POS vendor's view or just a retailer's view, but we've got people who've got feet in both sides. So we'd love to have you participate. We're on a very short time frame. I've got a couple of guys from yesterday's call who have agreed to come in. And the other thing is, I want to know what your mindset is on, just from other age solutions and so forth. We know that folks are there and contemplating. Another question coming in: is there a timeline on when these cloud services will be ready? David?
It's actually too bad that Manu's not here to answer that question because they are actually quasi-live today. So it's not going to be very long.
Yeah, I believe they stood up the server over the weekend, and so it's not quite alive, but it's very much there. So it'll be a very short period of time. It'll be there before we actually get that out to the POS guys. So if you are one of those folks who is engaged in writing your own POS code, we're very close to being there for you to start testing and developing. So we need eyes on review of the POS process, and we need you guys to volunteer. We need your engineering guys, if you're engaged deeply into the code work in the POS, to review within 30 days. So what we want to do is by the end of June, we want to be able to drop the APIs, microservices, and the specification flows to the POS vendors or the folks who are managing their own POS. And then we want to work really closely. So the engineering team that you had on here today is actually much deeper than this, would be available to work with you guys in the development operations side of it so that we can get you going. Our objective is to get a couple of pilots out by the middle of September. That really is our main objectives. With nothing else than driver's license scan, getting this thing going and banging against the server that we have, that we're designing to be scaled to hit the TPS levels that we need to do this across the United States and across all retail channels. So don't be shy. Please send us an email. We'd love to get you on the team. Any other questions? Well, look, again, here's my email address, my mobile number. Really want to thank you all for coming in and joining with us. Great questions coming out of the group today. Don't be shy to reach out to any of us on the team. We're here to serve you guys. We want to move this thing along, and we want to make it the best product that we can so that you guys can incorporate it. And we think we're solving a really big need. So don't be shy. Reach out to us, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And if you want to have a deep dive with a development team that you've got, we're willing to do that as well. We want everybody satisfied. We've got all the T's crossed and the I's dotted before we move to production. So thanks again, folks. Have a great day.